Yes, I am very aware that I'm nearly 4 years late for anything to do with this game, but I'm really bored right now this summer, and I'm deciding to once again play YouTuber to just fill the gap in my schedule. So this summer I decided to platinum the Ghost of Tsushima since it was free through PlayStation Plus. It's been sitting in my library forever, and I figured I might as well give it a try. It's an open world game with side missions and a main story similar to like 90% of the other games in that category. This format of game makes a platinum trophy pretty easily obtainable for the most part, especially when the only other games I've platted are the last two installments of the Spider-Man franchise, which, share the exact same rules. Today I'm going to give a brief review of the game and what I thought of my 60-hour experience. Let me say that again. 60 hours to collect every single base game trophy. Right off the bat, and you'll notice this real fast, this game is incredibly repetitive. Every single side mission and side character tale is just an uninspired fetch quest that numbs the brain, especially with all the side characters being so one-dimensional and stereotypical. The only one that gets any sort of a pass from me is Kenji, because he's a funny little guy, and I cracked up a couple times at his jokes and hijinks, but that's about it. Every other one is boring. In order to platinum the game, you must literally do every single mission that the game has to offer, complete over 150 boring-ass mini-games and fetch quests, and basically just explore every nook and cranny of the entire map. The main story itself takes around 15 hours to complete. I don't know if you're a math whiz, but that means there's 45 hours worth of just going to find collectibles around the island. I still did all this. I can't complain. I spent 60 hours in this game. And, it's whatever. Because it's something you can turn your brain off for and just grind out while you're listening to lo-fi hip-hop, which is exactly what I did. But the longer you play this game, the more things you discover that you hate about it. And I feel the exact same way. Hour 50, I was getting pissed at every single little mechanic and just telling myself that they could have done better. Here's 10 things I found... Here's 10 things right off the top of my head that I cannot stand about this game. Number 1, every cutscene is completely unskippable. You are forced to sit there and listen to these cringeworthy voice lines in their entirety for the entirety of the game. No exceptions. Not one. Especially not those multiple duels that you have to complete during the game. Every single one uses the exact same animation of Jin and the enemy facing off and unsheathing swords until it cuts straight into that crappy gameplay. It's maybe cool the first time. It's maybe cool the second time. But after duel number 12, I do not need a 45-second unskippable ad to hype up the guy that I'm about to decapitate in less than a minute. Number 2, the cutscene to gameplay transitions are awful. In most story games, they'll end a cutscene by moving the camera back over the shoulder or back into the eyes of the player with a seamless transition between cutscene and gameplay. This game does not have that. In Ghost of Tsushima, you'll click a button or enter an area to trigger a cutscene, the screen will go completely black, and then the cutscene plays until going to black again to return to the gameplay. It's just simple little gestures like this that they could put in there that they didn't, and just shows that there wasn't much effort put into this game and keeping its players immersed in the story. It's especially awful when you exit a cutscene, you run 100 feet to talk to another person, and then you get another cutscene. And of course, don't go thinking you can skip right over it. No, sir. You must watch every single second those actors spent in that mocap suit spouting out their AI-generated dialogue. Number 3, the fighting gameplay falls off a cliff after hour 10. Once you learn all the movesets and whatnot, which isn't that much, you're basically stuck with the same 15 or so moves for the rest of the game. Number 4, the story is very uninspired and just linear. They literally make a checklist for you on the right side of your screen when you open up the map just in case you get lost in its basicness, and it's literally just get friends, fight bad guys, profit. They could have done so much more and instead just went, the Mongols are bad, we must kill the Mongols, and then life will be good, and then that's it. That's literally it. Number 5, your main source of navigating the island is a horse, and its physics, animations, etc. all just suck ass entirely. It's slow, it's unathletic, it will not even touch a drop of water, and it's honestly just a pain to use. More on the horse, you can't even upgrade it. There's no speed upgrades, there's no health upgrades, there's nothing. You can't feed it, you can't pet it, you can't brush it. The only thing you can do is name it. But you're not going to name it with a custom name, no. Instead, you have to pick one of the 3 pre-generated names that the game gives you. This also came out 2 years after Red Dead Redemption 2 released, which had each of those features and much more. Number 6, the other terrible way to get around the island is parkour. And it's uninspired and not fun, yet it's forced all throughout the game. The engine looks like it's copy and pasted from Uncharted 2, maybe even Uncharted 1, and they took that and said, how do we make this even worse for the players to use? Anytime you visit a Shinto shrine, which you have to go to in order to get, charms and complete the game, really. You must go to each one. You have to trudge through nearly 5 minutes of a forced parkour section in order to reach the top. Number 7, the word Mongol or Mongols is probably said over 1,000 times over the course of this game, and it sticks out like a sore thumb every time you hear it. Can we use some different words for the love of God? I would even like to hear those, PG anime quote-unquote swear words like, oh, you bastard, or you dumbass, or you jerk. No, it's Mongol or Mongols each and every time, and it's said almost every other sentence. Number 8, there's no replayability for this game. None. The only thing New Game Plus has to offer is a few trophies and the ability to skip cutscenes. That's really it. And I really would have loved to have that mechanic at my disposal the first time around, but nah. You gotta completely restart and you can finally be spared from the ungodly yap sessions these characters go on. The only reason I'm playing the DLC right now is so I could have gameplay that wasn't riding a horse around the map that has nothing to do at this point, which is all my game is. 9. The detective gameplay that's forced all throughout is just god-awful. The extent of his Bruce Wayne investigations is literally going to the scene of a murder, interacting with 3 objects to fulfill that magical rule of 3 cliche that every game follows, and then you follow footprints that were graciously left right on a mud trail. If these enemies would have fled through grass at any point, we would have been so screwed on countless occasions. Number 10, to reach your current objective, you must swipe up on your center pad, which causes a gust of wind to blow in the direction of your objective. The NPCs explain that this is because Jin's dad died and his soul inhabited the wind that will guide Jin wherever he needs to go, or some other convoluted excuse. I think that's a great idea. And I think that it fits the narrative and it fits the setting really well, but my god is it done terribly. It's hard to tell where the wind is blowing more often than not because it's basically just white lines with 80% opacity going across your screen, and then there's no HUD to help you in the slightest, nor is there an option to even enable a HUD. I'm guessing they were going for this realistic gameplay, making you use the elements and your internal compass to get to where you're going. But here's the thing. I don't care. I'm playing a video game. Okay, I'm transporting myself into a virtual world where I'm not bound by the laws of physics. And not having just a tiny little dot in the top of my screen with a little compass to make sure that I'm on the right path is a pain in the ass. Anytime a helpful icon does appear above a character or a location, it doesn't work correctly. And it doesn't show up until you're close enough to count the freckles on their face too. Again, I played 60 hours of this game, so I had to enjoy it in some capacity. So here's some of the things that I did like about Ghost of Tsushima. Jin's character is done very well. I think he's smart, he's cunning, he's a badass, with the perfect amount of emotion sprinkled right in. He's watched so many of his family and friends die at this point, and he's sick of losing anyone else, so he breaks that samurai code to ensure an edge over his enemies in combat. So this gives us access to different kinds of weapons, the stealth gameplay, and a good narrative forcing him to choose between his honor or the lives of his allies. The island is gorgeous to look at and traverse. And you'll have moments where you're at the top of a cliff or even just, in a patch of grass where you stop and stare to appreciate the beauty that this game has to offer. I think the different stances based on what kind of enemy you're fighting is a great idea, and it opens up the fighting animations fourfold. However, I wish there was an upgrade you could buy to where your stance would automatically change for you in combat, because having to click R2 and select while they're attacking you is just kind of a nuisance, especially when you're fighting three enemies at once that are all different kinds, and you don't know which one you're going to lock onto or which one's going to come fight you first. So it's just kind of a pain. I wish maybe, even if it's the last upgrade to get, that it should automatically change. The mini games and collectible locations, even though there are way too many, each of them are very unique. I love chasing those cute little foxes around to get the fighting upgrades, but there's just way too many. There's really cool set pieces all throughout this game, like, when you're retaking castles with 50 of your allies, or fighting in the ocean, with the waves coming crashing down on an enemy warship, jumping from boat to boat to kill people. That's awesome. But honestly, it's still got nothing on Spider-Man or Uncharted, where you're being thrown through walls and you fall 100 feet into a giant, puddle of water and stuff like that. It really just can't compare to that. Overall, in conclusion, I think this game is just okay. There's really nothing that special going on, but it's a fun experience for a casual gamer looking for their next story game to grind. I give it a 6.2 out of 10. It's just a less fun and less creative version of the Spider-Man games and Uncharted and those other story platformer games. And I enjoyed some of it, and I don't regret playing it, but it has a lot of problems, and there's just a lot of other games out there that do so much more. Thanks for listening to me yap about a 4-year-old game at this point. If you have any disagreements with any of my takes, let me know in the comments. I'm not going to read them, but, they'll be there. That's all I got for you guys. Later.